Hi, this is Elaine Mingus with the Vulture Reselling podcast, and I am so excited for our guest today. It's I Spy Antiques. He was born the same year as Taylor Swift, and he was also born on the most perfect date, April 25th, where it's not too hot, not too cold, and all you need is a light jacket, which, of course, as a pageant girl, 100% love that quote. So Marcus has his self-described homosexual audacity that makes him believe that he possesses any of the skills required to do whatever he set his mind to, despite having no previous experience. He always knew he was destined to sell dead people's shit online while making silly videos about it, as described by People magazine. And yes, the People magazine, that actually happened. He is described as an antique salesman. He's found his passion and love for helping vintage items that would have been used as weapons by the mole people, but now are given a second life of glory on a bookcase until another gay man like Marco in 75 years wakes up at the ass crack of dawn to put his name on a list to get inside an estate sale and beat up old ladies for that one vintage item that was once sold by famed antique salesman Marco Brune, who was born on the most perfect day, April 25th, 1989. Welcome to the podcast. That is quite the introduction.
You did great.
Of course, I am like enamored. I'm so honored because I always just shoot my shot. I'm like, please be on my podcast. And there are way cooler people online than me. And then they're like, yes, I will. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so
much. Always shoot your shots.
I know. It's like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Okay, but so I have to read. Because you're so good natured, I decided to ask ChatGPT to do a roast on your
roast.
I'm gonna read a roast for your Instagram. Okay, so this is what ChatGPT says. I Spy Antiques, where TikTok meets your grandma's attic, and every unique find looks like it crawled out of the 1970s horror movie no one asked for. Marco Brune brings us the finest selections of items that should have been retired a long time ago. Because why let quality control or even common sense stand in the way of a good laugh? His dedication to rescuing these relics of dubious taste is truly awe-inspiring. Only Marco would go to battle with octogenarians over the cracked ceramic poodle or a haunted-looking doll that has seen more Christmases than the tree in Times Square. Probably. And let's talk about those vintage recipes, Marco, because nothing says culinary excellence like mashing expired Jell-O with canned ham and calling it nostalgic cuisine. Marco's cooking experiments belong to the FBI's do not eat list, yet he serves them up with the kind of confidence only TikTok influencers can pull off. It takes guts and maybe a mild lack of self-preservation to convince us that gelatin salads from 1955 is a must-try. But seriously, Marco, you're doing the Lord's work, giving our thrift store nightmares a second chance. And honestly, we love to watch it all unfold, if only to remind ourselves never to let you pick the menu. So that's Elaine, what GPT said about you.
When you said roast, I was imagining much worse. That was quite great.
I know. He was kind of nice to you.
He was kind of nice to me. I'll take it. I've been called much worse, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Well, I saw the first thing that pops up on my feed today on Instagram is you with a lamb costume stuffed around your face, and you were making a pumpkin gelatin, just monstrosity. And some of I cannot tell you. I've like sat there and watched you like barf up like all these awful recipes you're making. Like, I don't know where people thought that these things were good and why Jell-O is like a staple of the
housewives. The housewives of the mid-century were drunk, and they were also popped up on some Quaaludes and having the time of their lives.
I think so. I mean, I've had some really weird cravings. I've been pregnant quite a few times, so
just maybe
twice. I can say my husband doesn't really approve of all the things I eat either.
Do you remember your worst or weirdest pregnancy craving?
I don't know if I had. I know that like with certain kids, like with the girls, I always crave like fruit. And then with the boys, I like crave bread or something like that. But not anything super that I remember that I really, really like. But I like weird foods in general. I'm like a big fan of like vinegar and putting everything on everything. So
I love a pickled anything.
Yeah, pickled anything. That sounds really good. Okay, so you have to tell me, what is this People Magazine thing about? Like, how did you get mentioned on People Magazine? That's a pretty big feat.
I take the quote because it happened. It did happen. I got married 3 years ago, and my vows went viral. They were about Hillary Duff. And like Hillary Duff ended up sending us a wedding gift. She got us our cutlery off of our registry, which was super sweet and kind. She was so lovely. But yeah, we just had viral vows that they were about Hillary Duff. We got married twice. We got married in the pandemic in a lovely ceremony in my husband's backyard, our sister's backyard, and then we got married at like an actual like venue a year later. And my husband just said, "Let's do fun, silly vows." Like, why? We'd already did it serious the first time. I know what you mean. So we had fun, and they just went. They were a hit. And so I got interviewed by People Magazine, and they were just like, "What do you do for a living?" I was like, "Oh, I sell antiques." And we found it so funny that they called me like an antique salesman, just like like cue the musical theater patter song. Like,
yeah, I know. Like, yeah, you should be like what is the famous auction house? Sotheby's or something.
Yeah,
like, it sounds
come on down.
Which is probably, no offense, the opposite of
opposite of what I wanted.
Okay, so how did you start this whole crazy business that you're doing now?
Here we were in the pandemic, and my job,
all good things happened.
All good things. I thrived in the pandemic. I know a lot of people struggled. I was living my best life. I loved it. I really took it as an opportunity to like rediscover myself, try new things. And I had a job, and I loved my job. And as the pandemic happened, it like shifted to like an online role, and then it became like so much work, more than I was already doing. And so after a year of it, I was just like, "Hey, can I get a raise?" And my boss said to me, "You should just be happy you have a job." And I was like, no. And so I put my 2 weeks notice in, and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? What do I want to do? And then I've always loved antiques, always loved vintage. And there was an account online called the White Pepper Vintage or White Pepper Vintage. I'm not sure if there's and she inspired me. I was like, oh, you can sell vintage online. I never thought about that. I was like, oh, I you have to open an antique shop to do that. And so she was my inspiration. And then my husband really pushed me to do it. And he's like, you have a great eye. You love this. You always have. Why not try a business? And so I took the leap and I went in, and here I am.
So what was the first piece that you decided to flip? And did you start with like estate sale?
I started with estate sales from the start. I love an estate sale. I don't know about you, but I love it. They're intense. I'm sure we'll talk more about those in a minute.
Okay, like where in the country are you located?
I'm in Chicago.
Okay, all right. So estate sales.
So there are a billion a weekend, and I'm very fortunate in that sense. And they're all out in like the suburbs. So I'm exploring a lot more of the suburbs than I had hoped in my life, but here I am.
Whatever works.
Whatever works.
What's that first piece?
The first piece I ever sold was a mid-century like teak candelabra of all the things. And it was to this woman who I'm still friends with. Her name is Jody. Hey, Jody, if you're ever listening. She owns like a sewing studio here. But like funny like story, like I met her like 10 years ago at a party with my ex-boyfriend, and it was her friend, and then we have weirdly like always stayed in like contact, and then she was the first sale, and I'll always remember Jody for that reason. And I appreciate it
for sure. That is awesome. I also flourished during the pandemic, and I think it was partly like just a perfect storm of the pandemic, people redoing their houses, Facebook Marketplace, Venmo, like all of it was just this. I mean, and so I was the same way. Like we were like, everybody else was all like maybe floundering, and we were like, woohoo, we're in the money, giving us money for all our kids. We were rich. So when did you add in, or did you just start from the beginning, the video process of the entire thing?
I did it from the beginning, starting to do videos. During the pandemic, I started doing I feel like during the pandemic, TikTok is like really when it blew up because we all were just like at home bored. And my best friend Trey was like, "Are you on TikTok?" And I was like, not. And he was like, "You should try it." And so I just like started doing TikTok just like for fun on like my own personal account. And then that kind of blew up. And I had like a really big TikTok following on like my personal account. And it was really fun, really exciting. And then I got onto the wrong side of TikTok. And some negative communities took in and tried to attack, and it was tough. And I took a break, and I saw like a dark side of the internet, which I was always aware of, but it was overwhelming.
Mhm.
Got myself a little bit of therapy. Everyone should. And then I started this business and looked at it as an opportunity to start performing in videos and having that outlet again. I am an actor originally, and I stopped performing in the pandemic. And so I always looked at these videos as like an opportunity to like perform and get out my creativity. And so it just like was this lovely experience to like be doing like humorous things online again. It felt really good. And so I start from the beginning, always done videos.
I'm so sorry you fell on the wrong side of TikTok. It's amazing that the division between people gets so vast and online, and in real life I don't ever experience that type of division like that. And
Yeah.
so it's really sad. And it's bad when Elise Myers has to take a break from all things social media, and they're giving her hell about her kid who has a heart condition. You're just like, where is the humanity? Like, these keyboard warriors, they just drive me nuts. So yeah, and I always just use it as more fodder for the flame, like
Yeah.
to like bring them, bring it up and talk about, no, I'm sorry, because I've gotten like roasted for like, yeah, you stupid resellers, you always say you're saving it from the landfill, and you're like, no, really, 12 million tons of furniture goes in the landfill. Like,
We have so much clothes, you have no idea.
yeah, I was
There
just
is
at
so
the
much
clothes
crap on
factory
this earth.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, people they get that blind confidence behind a blank profile, and good for them, whatever. Enjoy.
Whatever. So, okay. So, what is your, like, do you have like a funny story? I mean, you talked about beating down old people. I'm not sure that
Okay,
that,
I want to hold on. I want to come out clear that I have never beat an old woman in my life, or an old man. I've never beat anyone in my life. More so for the humor of it all.
I figured you did not, but have you had any other experiences outside of attacking the elderly?
Well, as we were talking earlier about estate sales, they are wild. You're in Texas? Am I crazy?
Texas, yeah.
You're in Texas? Yeah, okay. I don't know how it is down there, but I know like each region has like their own rules. And in the Midwest Illinois area, you wake up at the ass crack of dawn, and then you go put your name on a list. And then the person who was the first person there starts that list, and they have to stay with that list the entire time. Everyone else can leave and come back, but that person who started the list has to stay there. Now, sometimes that person will leave that list alone, and someone will come along and steal that list and throw that list away and start their own list. And then there's two lists, and then it's like 5 minutes before, and I've seen people screaming at each other, and it's like it's 8:30 in the morning. My coffee is barely in my bloodstream, and I'm gonna need you to take a breath, sir. And they'll fight about that. I've watched grown men break expensive glass like by ripping it out of each other's hands. There was like blood, and it's just people lose their minds because there almost is this kind of like apocalypse effect that feels like when you go into an estate sale, because like they just release you and like everyone runs in, and it's like supermarket sweep, and you're just grabbing shit, and like you kind of black out a little bit. And so people get angry because they have been waiting there since 4 a.m. for something, and if they don't get it, they lose their minds. So it's just I love to just watch. It's good people watching.
Well, and I feel the same way. I don't know if you'll have Goodwill bins over there where it's like, so that it's like the Goodwill outlets where they just kind of dump everything in these big rolling table bins. And then they have like, it's like literally a start line, like a line of people, and they all have to wait. And you're like, why are they all lined up? And then all of a sudden they like, queue, and like they go like a stampede of people, and they're like, and you're just like, I will take the leftovers. Like, I do not need anything that bad.
Elaine, I have never fucked with a Goodwill bin because I have seen the videos online of that happens. Like people go crazy over a bin, and I don't get it. But maybe I'll go one day and I'll experience it. It'll be a good video.
It is it's definitely an experience. Well, and they say you're not supposed to video, which I'm like,
Mm.
that's a little suspicious. If you're telling me not to.
Well, they start in some state sales now. They don't allow you to take photos or really use your phone because they don't want you to like Google image search it, find out the price. They want you to like take the item and go. They like, people are getting weird these days. They're getting weird.
Like if I want to haggle, that's like part of the whole.
Yeah, that's part of the fun of it.
Haggle, like, and you can say no.
I'm not a good haggler. Are you a good haggler? I'm not good.
No, probably not. Probably
but
not.
like you're pretty, so like I bet like I use my like gay charm, and I'm sure you use like your prettiness a little bit to help you.
Whatever you've been given, for sure.
You got to use what the Lord gave you to get by in life a little.
Exactly. Yeah, my daughter, we were at the Goodwill bins, and she was like, "I just stuck my hand in a pile of vomit." Like she was really grossed out. So you got to be wearing gloves there. Okay, so do you sell just smalls?
I do a little bit of both. I primarily sell smalls online, so that's probably like what you see a lot of the times. But I sell like larger items through Facebook Marketplace, through my Instagram to the local Chicago area.
Yeah.
But if someone wants to pay shipping on a chair, by all means, I'll sell it to you.
Yeah, I have not yet shipped.
Because you sell rather large things.
Yeah, mostly just furniture.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, a small piece, but mostly furniture just because I can't handle like little knickknacks around my house. I've got kids. I can't have knickknacks.
No, they touch everything.
So I've never shipped a piece of furniture, and I'm just like, I don't know who's buying a $180 chair and then shipping it for $400. But
what's the website? What's the website when you Google image search everything and it's like Cherish, the first one that pops up that's like so expensive? They reached out to me the other day and told me like to join Cherish, and that they were trying to do like a partnership together, and that they will ship for you. And so I'm not sure how that works, but they will ship furniture for you and like handle the processing, handle the company. So I'm gonna look into that and I'll get back to you.
Okay, well, definitely get back to me. I know that there's U-Ship and you can pay for like they kind of have bids, like someone will come and pack it up for you, but it's extra.
Yeah.
And I know that I think it's Flea Market Flipper, like one of the biggest ways he makes money is he does ship. And so he'll build his own crates and stuff like that. But you're talking about he buys like a commercial oven for $400 and then sells it for $30,000. And because he can ship it, because he's people across the way are like, oh, he ships. I'm going to get this commercial oven that was $100,000 for $30,000. To them, it's a win. And so he definitely is one that I've followed, and I'm like, man, if I could do that shipping thing, that would be awesome. But I'm just,
if only I could build a crate for
if only I could build a crate. Yeah, that would probably be I just like to restore or finish my furniture.
I was gonna say, do you do a lot of? I know a lot of people will either here, look at me flipping the script, interviewing you. A lot of people will try to aim to find furniture that is mostly pretty good to go and don't really want to do a lot. Do you enjoy the sanding, the fixing, the flipping of the process?
No, I prefer just finding stuff that's really unique and going out and kind of more almost like a concierge service. I go out, I find it, drive all over the town, I'll fix it up, screw anything in, do some restore finish. I do fix a lot of furniture because a lot of it does come broken. It's wood glue and veneer is missing and stuff like that. But I do sand and paint, but only when I'm really when there's a desert of furniture. When I'm I can't find any furniture, then I'll do some painting and stuff. But it's not my go-to, just because I'm
for sure.
I do it, yeah. And I got kids, and they're
when I first started, I was like, yeah, I'll buy anything. I'll fix this. I'll sell this. No, it sat in my office for a year and a half, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, big orange tent, and we called it the tent of no return because once it went in there, it was not coming out for sure. Okay, so if you were to look at your entire Instagram and your are you just repost on Instagram from TikTok?
I try to post it all at the same time in the best I can. I post on everything. Whatever goes on Instagram usually goes on TikTok, usually goes on YouTube, usually goes on Facebook. Okay. But as I've been exploring this realm of different types of content, I am leaning towards like making my TikTok maybe like more food focused. My Instagram will be everything, because I find my food content does really well on Instagram or on TikTok, but my other videos don't do the best on TikTok, just the food ones. So like, but my Instagram, everything does great there. So I'll take that any day.
The food ones, I think, are just so unique. I mean, no shade to us resellers, but there's a lot of resellers, but there's not a lot of people making gelatin desserts from the 1950s.
There's not many of us. There's a few great ones out there.
Yeah, and there's not as many that have such a big personality as well. So like it's just so if you are listening to this podcast and you haven't checked out I Spy Antiques on Instagram or TikTok and seen him, try to stomach some of these awful recipes, you definitely what is the worst recipe you've made?
The worst recipe I've ever made. It's funny because like a lot of these recipes are arguably delicious. I have a hard time with like textures. And so there's a lot of jello and like a lot of crunchiness in like everything else. So that's the really hard part for me, is like the crunchy jello-ness of it all. But the grossest one I've made was probably the second one, which was like a literal bologna loaf that I like carved out and like filled with peas and onions. And for some reason, just like the onion and the Miracle Whip just like was too much, just was beyond too much for me, And I never saw myself making vintage. I never saw this being like the thing that like really blew up for me. And I'll take it, honestly. But like, I never saw myself as like a cook per se. I cook at home. I'm an okay cook, and I don't love to bake, but like I'm Italian, so like it's in me naturally, but I just never saw this as like my career path.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've gotten pretty good. That pumpkin that you made, I was like, you flipped it, and I was like, all right, it looks good.
It was beautiful. It looked like glass, and like I'm gonna toss my own hair to that, but I thought it was gorgeous.
It was gorgeous. The one that really grossed me out was like it was like maybe a shepherd's pie, which I don't like shepherd's pie anyhow. No. So maybe that was why it was really gross.
I'm also not into shepherd's pie any day of the week. Controversial, and not into a chicken pot pie. And I feel like that's a controversial statement.
Yeah, it's kind of I'm not a huge fan. Now, a good one, like a good homemade one, but like your $1 banquet one's probably not so much.
No, not good. No, not at all.
So when you look at your Instagram, what is your like favorite video of all of your, like, which one do you have pinned, I guess?
Which one do I have pinned? Are you into the fridge-scaping trend?
Oh, I saw. Yes. Okay. No, I've seen the fridge-scaping, but I just saw one of your fridge-scaping. So kind of for our viewers, tell us what that is.
Fridge-scaping is an art, an art form that I do not participate in. I just made fun of. But I will give props to the people who do it, because like it does look arguably gorgeous at the end. But the point is to like add culture to your fridge, add some warmth and decor, and people will take full on jars, like crazy, like actual vintage items, and put them in their fridge, and we'll take a vintage vase and fill it up with carrots, and they'll have framed photos, they'll put lights in there, and it's just this wild trend that people are doing, and I thought it was just funny and ridiculous, so I made fun of it, and it was arguably just like a silly fun video that I made literally in 10 seconds, and it went really well, and I just really loved it. I thought it was stupid and silly and fun.
Yeah,
I think those are my favorite videos, the ones that are just silly and I don't think about, because a lot of times I'll have to like do a lot of planning for these videos and like think ahead and set up things. But I really enjoy the ones that are just kind of fun, off the cuff. I don't have to think about too much,
Yeah, and those are the ones that usually perform the best, I think. I always wonder, like stuff like the one thing I've kind of started hating about social media is like you can never tell if something is legit or not. Like, are they just fridge-scaping for views? Like, and then they pull it all out and then they use a fridge like a normal person? Or they just have an extra fridge and that they're just bougie like that?
I have no idea. I hope they use it, but like maybe they have a second fridge. That's when you made it. When you have your indoor fridge and then you have a garage fridge for popping drinks. Like that's you made it in life.
Okay, well then I guess I've made it, because I don't have a garage.
You made it then.
a mini fridge with water. It's actually a fridge for me and my husband so that my kids don't touch the foods that I don't. It's like our sacred fridge. So I don't know if that was we made it or that's just desperation because we have so
I
much.
think that is desperation. That was an act in desperation to survive
Um,
your children.
so if you were to tell our listeners who are vintage resellers some advice on starting an account, whether it be social media or selling or fixing up things, what would it be?
Well, my advice doesn't, I cannot claim this advice. It comes from our lovely gal, Julia Fox, if you're aware. She says, anyone who is anyone in life and has ever made it is delusional. And you have to be delusional and believe in yourself that you are the best, you are amazing. Everything you're doing is high content and what the people want. Because you can so much get caught in your head. Oh, I only got 12 views. Oh, this didn't go right. Like you can get so hung up on that. And that's not the point. For me, the point of social media is to have fun, put out fun content that people like to watch, that bring joy or laughter, you know, and people just get so stuck on that video just didn't do good. And that's okay if the video doesn't do good. You tried your best and like you tried something new and you're trying. And that's all you have to do is just keep trying. And even then, I know I sound so confident saying that. I still get hung up on things. Like I did my first DIY video the other day and that was tough for me. I was just like, this isn't my normal content. People are going to think it's weird. Like, and I had to say to myself, like, why are you having this voice in your head right now, Marco? Like, you never have this voice. Just be confident. Who cares? Do it. So be delusional. Believe in yourself. Like, you can't go wrong when you're your number one fan.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And you're right. Like, and we all have that like imposter syndrome in us. And I was reading Be Seen, Jen Gottlieb, and she was
Uh-huh.
talking about that she's talked to some of the like biggest influencers, and she's like amazed because they have the same fears as us. And it's just that they're like when they are doing something new, it's really big, and they're having those like imposter syndrome thoughts. So like we all have that. And yesterday I went to the Slow Fashion Fest, and as like I was a heroin addict, I was a roller derby girl. Like my vibe is like kind of that like underground vintage vibe. But so when I go and I have to put on this like when I volunteer, I put on my Mrs. Austin sash, which even when I got into pageantry, I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Like when I saw the first pageant girl talk, the reason why I got in, I was like, oh, she's so cute. Like she had like a nice little rosy childhood, and mine was so, not rosy.
Not
And
really.
so I feel like when I walk in, sometimes I feel, especially when when your people clash. Like I can go to like the networking groups with all the older ladies, that are all in their
Uh-huh.
40s and we're all dressed up nice and wear my sash, no problem. But when you go into your like grungy kind of underground Austin vibe, like with my crown and my sash, I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna look like completely like an outsider. And so I, went in to volunteer at this Slow Fashion Fest, and I had that thought in my head, like, so cheesy. Like, I don't want to put this sash on, I just want to go in and be my normal, like, vintage self. But, I needed to represent. I need photos for social media because I'm fixing to go into pageant. And, I went in and I had to flip a switch. And it was an actual, like, no, I belong here. Like, all these people are in their
Yeah.
20s. I am 44. I have been doing this for years. I know exactly what I'm doing. I just have to come off like that. And as soon as I flipped that switch, like I started making connections, people like, I could tell that people were like wanted to talk to me instead of just like sitting in the back going, oh, so dorky, or whatever.
Sometimes I have to remind myself everyone in this room also is scared to be here. Everyone also would be preferred in their sweatpants on their couch right now, but no, we're going to be here. And so in those moments, I always like to find like someone who looks like they look a little scared, and then I make that my friend. And then, I make that my first comfort person. And then once I like feel good with that person, that's when I feel like I can open up a little more too. And I feel like that also helps them, And so I'm glad you did that. You have to flip that switch. You want a sash and a crown, bitch. Wear it with pride.
I know. I just like have to really embrace it and realize that both of those worlds can mix, and it's my job to mix them. Like I'm the like first mixer of the group,
Yeah.
and that's a really cool calling as well, is to be like the person that, starts starts the conversation between two
For
opposite
sure.
groups. I think that's fun.
I think sometimes I think sometimes I can feel that way as like a gay man in like a straight sporting event or whatnot, where something just isn't necessarily like my normal normal place I like to hang out. But I'm always pleasantly surprised. Like I usually am always wrong, and I'm always like, Marco, why did you do that to yourself? Like, there's no point.
Yeah, you like gaslight yourself because I think it's social media because the division is so strong in social media, and then we get in real life and we realize, oh, most people aren't assholes. They're pretty
Yeah.
normal, like they're pretty accepting and loving.
Yeah,
So
there's a
I
few
think
assholes out there, but
there are. So, what are some of the influences that you've had, like favorite movie, favorite book, like things that from your past that really have made you into who you are today?
Oh wow, what a deep question. I love
I know that
that.
wasn't on the script, so
It
sorry.
wasn't on the script. No, I'm in. Influences from my past. Well, I know this isn't influences in the sense of now in my vintage vibe or me as a human.
Just anything, who you are, vintage, whatever it is. Like I would say, like Labyrinth with David Bowie was like a just part of my childhood, and I think it's influenced me throughout my life.
I have been really influenced by women in general. As a gay man, I've always just found myself to be a little more comfortable with women, and I've always had women friends, and I always found myself going to friends' houses and wanting to hang out and sit with their mothers in the kitchen and talk to them rather than the children. And so I've always just gravitated towards strong women. So Judy Garland, I've been obsessed with. Cher, I was obsessed with. The Wizard of Oz was like a big one for me. And then even in like a vintage sense, my mother, she was a smoker and she still is a smoker with half of her lung. And God bless, she loves it and I'm not going to stop it. And I think that in a weird sense inspired me because like now I collect like smoking memorabilia and ashtrays and I'm really like driven by that for some reason, and it's probably her influence. But yeah, horror movies. Oh, I love a good scary movie has always influenced me.
That explains a
And
lot.
yeah, yeah. And like kind of the final girl mentality. There's the lead always that usually survives, and she's called the final girl. And there's just something about like that woman overcoming so much of like being attacked and everyone's coming after her, but she survives. And I think that's been a mentality of mine of just like, you can if she can survive a chainsaw, you can survive the third grade. You know. Like,
Yeah, and I think I've also been influenced by and it was a very smoky generation, I think, our parents, because I remember these beautiful ashtrays. I remember this green one that was like,
gorgeous.
they were just so beautiful, like pieces of art that were actually useful. I think that's part of it. It's like it wasn't just art, it was useful art.
And
So
they made everyone who was a smoker look so cool.
I
Like the women were
watched
so
it.
glamorous, the men were sexy. Like, yes.
I know. God, that kind of the ads, the Marble Men ads, not only commercials. We had all sorts of totally
Yeah.
things that would never fly
No.
these days. Where can we find you on social media for the people that are listening?
You can find me on social media on all platforms. I Spy Antiques, EYE, because I'm not trying to get sued by the children's books. Do you remember those books? I Spy
Yes,
books?
I do. I do.
So
Which
those
it
were
actually,
my
your space kind of looks like an I Spy space. So
that was my inspiration. And for the name of the business, I always loved those books. And I always found them so interesting. I also love those books that you could like put your face really close to and then pull back and it like reveals an image.
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? But
And
you can
we're
find me on all
all
platforms. I Spy Antiques, EYE, across everything: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. But if you follow me on Instagram, you'll get all the content regardless of where you are.
yeah. And do you have a website or anything like that?
I have a website. I believe it's ispyantiques.com, and it literally is just anything you would also find on Instagram. I believe I also have one at marcobraun.com, but who knows? There was a scary month ago where we forgot to renew our like name through like, and like our website got bought, and then I had to like fight for it. I had to like get a lawyer, and like I paid like $45 from a lawyer just to get him to get it back. But like crazy.
I actually, when I used to blog, I had someone buy my website as is and like repost everything. And I was like, I took that down for like, there are photos of my kids on there. Like, you bet I had to do a cease and desist, and it was like $250. I was just like, what is wrong with you people?
Dang. Sometimes it's almost like, am I a little flattered that you think I'm that wonderful?
Yeah. But I was like, I'm as a graphic designer I was like horrified because like the way they had put it back up was like all like because it's like they didn't have all the codes. It was like really ugly, and I was like, no, that is not going to be attached to my name at
That's
all.
not
So
my name. Thank you
definitely
so
like
much.
upset.
Goodbye.
Yeah. So closing out, what is something that you would want to tell the listeners about you? Interesting fact, whatever it is.
Something I want to tell the viewers about me. An interesting fact. I've had a lot of past lives. I told myself at a very young age that I will do anything that's presented to me, whether it is a good time, go travel here, do this. I will always say yes if it's not putting me in danger. And so I always said a lot of yeses, and that included my career. And at one time, I was a butler, and I used to study the art of serving a traditional English tea. And so I then studied and became a tea sommelier. And I am now a trained professional butler who specializes in the art of traditional English tea.
I did not know that. And I feel like there's some sort of like video in the making in that. Like I'm pretty sure you could put those two together with what you're doing now. I think that would be some good content right there. So I appreciate you, Marco, for joining us on the podcast. And everybody that's listening, check him out at I Spy Antiques. And join us next time as we continue interviewing some of the best resellers that we can find on the interwebs and just learn about reselling, learn about how to restore furniture, all the things. Check us out next time.